Diamonds don't shine until they've been cut, and steel does not reveal its true strength until it has passed through fire. In the same way, the strength of a woman chosen by God must be tested. Testing is not a punishment, it is a declaration. It is heaven's way of saying, I trust you with this. Many wonder why their lives seem to carry challenges that others never face. But the truth is, God does not invest his hardest battles in the hands of the unprepared. When a woman stands in the fire, it is not because she is weak, but because she has already been marked strong enough to endure. Her trial is evidence of her calling, not evidence of her failure. The intensity of the struggle matches the magnitude of the assignment. And yet, it is not just about enduring the fire. It is about what the fire produces. A diamond under pressure does not resist its transformation. It becomes something more valuable. Likewise, when God's strongest women walk through pain, the process develops qualities that cannot come any other way. Endurance grows, wisdom deepens, faith matures, patience strengthens. These are not lessons learned in comfort. They are lessons written in the language of tears. The very weight of the trial chisels away what is shallow, until all that remains is substance. Testing strips away illusions of control and forces complete reliance on God's hand. This is why the storm may last longer than expected, because the shaping is not complete until strength is proven. A woman who has not been tested might speak of faith, but her words carry little weight. A woman who has walked through fire, however, becomes a living testimony. She no longer talks about what she hopes is true. She declares what she knows is true. The authority of her voice comes not from education, not from position, not even from influence, but from the fact that she has been there. She has seen darkness close in, and she has seen light break through. When she tells others that God is faithful, her words grip the heart because they are forged in the furnace of experience. This is what sets apart the strong women of God. They don't simply preach hope, they embody it. But such authority cannot be cheapened or imitated. It comes at a cost, and the cost is suffering. You cannot fake the scars of endurance. You cannot pretend to have carried a cross you never lifted. Those who try to speak without enduring the test sound hollow. But those who have walked with God through valleys of pain carry a resonance that shakes people to their core. When they say, I know God will carry you through, it is not theory, it is revelation. Their testimony becomes a bridge for others to walk across, giving courage to those who feel they cannot survive. Authority birthed in suffering is not only personal, it becomes generational. This is why the testing of strong women is often relentless. God is not only producing strength for her own survival, but creating a legacy of strength for those who will follow. Her children, her family, her community, her circle of influence, all will draw from the well she has dug in her pain. She may feel alone in the battle, but in reality, her endurance is setting a foundation for countless others to stand on. Her trial is her training ground, but it becomes her family's protection. What she learns in the dark will light the way for those behind her. The test she endures today becomes the testimony that will strengthen the next generation tomorrow. And still, the fire does something even deeper. It transforms not only what she can do, but who she becomes. Strength is not just the ability to endure. It is the ability to reflect God's image under pressure. Every tear shed becomes a drop of anointing. Every battle fought becomes a step into destiny. Every wound endured becomes a place where God's glory rests. Testing is not only about surviving, it is about becoming. And when God tests his strongest women, he is not trying to destroy them. He is revealing to the world the beauty, resilience, and power that he placed within them all along. When a woman has walked through the valley, she does not simply speak of faith as an abstract idea. She carries it as a living reality. Her suffering transforms her words into something weighty, something undeniable. Authority is not given freely, it is forged in fire. When she speaks after enduring trials, people lean in because they can hear in her voice the echo of pain survived. They sense that what she says is not borrowed but birthed. She doesn't just read about trust in God. She has had to cling to him when everything else collapsed. Her voice carries authority because it has been tested by storms, shaken by loss, and refined by tears. Pain creates a testimony that cannot be manufactured. A woman who has struggled through betrayal, illness, or loss speaks with a depth that resonates far beyond surface encouragement. Her words are not coded in cliches, but in truth that drips from the depths of her own experience. This is why others listen with reverence, because they know she has lived what she proclaims. The authority of suffering means she doesn't have to shout to be heard. Her scars speak louder than her tone. Each trial survived becomes a badge of credibility. Each hardship endured adds another layer of trustworthiness. Others believe her not because of her eloquence, but because of her authenticity. Consider the difference between theory and reality. Someone can teach about hope in a classroom, but another who has wrestled through despair and still found light carries unmatched influence. The authority of suffering is the bridge between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge can be memorized, but wisdom is lived. When a woman emerges from hardship, she carries wisdom that cannot be found in books. She knows how it feels to pray when heaven seems silent, and she knows the joy of seeing God answer when all hope seemed gone. That wisdom cannot be argued against because it has been proven in the crucible of her own life. This kind of authority does not just bless her, it blesses everyone connected to her. People who sit under her words find strength because her story validates their own pain. They realize they are not alone. And if she survived, they can too. Her authority pulls others up from despair and gives them courage to fight another day. What she gained in her valley becomes the very tool God uses to lead others out of theirs. This ripple effect is what makes suffering so powerful in God's hands. It multiplies. What she endured privately becomes healing for many publicly. The more she suffered, the wider her influence spreads, because her life carries proof that God is still faithful. And yet it is not only her words that carry weight, it is her presence. Authority gained through suffering changes how a woman walks into a room. She does not need to demand respect. People sense it. They recognize the depth in her eyes, the calm in her spirit, the steadiness in her faith. Suffering has stripped away the shallow and left behind a core of unshakable trust. That kind of presence is powerful because it does not come from human achievement, but from divine refinement. Authority gained this way cannot be stolen, copied, or faked. It is uniquely hers because it was paid for with her own tears. Ultimately, the authority born out of suffering gives her an assignment. She is not allowed to waste her pain. She must steward it. What she has endured becomes a calling card for ministry, leadership, and influence. The very things that tried to break her become the things that qualify her. God does not allow his strongest women to suffer without purpose. Their valleys become pulpits, their wounds become wisdom, and their scars become sermons. When they speak, they are not merely telling stories, they are declaring victories. Their authority is not borrowed from someone else's faith. It is the undeniable evidence of God's faithfulness written on the pages of their own lives. Hell does not waste energy on people going nowhere. The enemy is not concerned with those who pose no threat to his agenda. But when a woman is chosen by God, when her destiny carries weight, when her influence has the power to shift atmospheres and transform generations, then the battle against her becomes fierce. The intensity of her suffering is directly tied to the size of her assignment. If you feel like the attacks against your life are relentless, it is not because you are weak. It is because you are dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. The enemy sees in you what you may not yet see in yourself: potential, purpose, and power. The devil's strategy is always to attack early and attack hard. He knows that if he can wound a woman before she discovers who she is in God, he can weaken her confidence and distract her from her calling. This is why many of the strongest women endure hardship in their childhood or their early years: abandonment, rejection, abuse, betrayal. These are not coincidences. They are calculated strikes designed to break the vessel before it can pour out its oil. But when she survives those early attacks and chooses to keep moving, her very survival becomes a threat. Every time she refuses to quit, she announces to the enemy that his plan has failed. The enemy does not fight what he does not fear. He fears a praying woman. He fears a woman who will not bow under pressure. He fears a woman who turns her pain into prayer and her tears into testimony. He knows that once she discovers her authority in God, she becomes unstoppable. That is why the warfare intensifies when she draws closer to God. The suffering she faces is not proof of abandonment. It is proof of potential. The enemy would not waste so much energy on her if she were insignificant. The ferocity of the attack reveals the magnitude of the destiny. When a woman begins to understand this, her perspective shifts. She no longer sees her suffering as random cruelty, but as spiritual warfare. She realizes she is targeted because she is chosen. This awareness brings a new level of strength because she recognizes that her battles are not just about her. They are about the generations tied to her. Her destiny carries the power to break chains in her family line, to heal wounds that have lingered for decades, to raise up children who will walk in freedom. The enemy fears her influence because he knows it will outlive her. But what the enemy does not understand is that every attack designed to destroy her is being repurposed by God to build her. Every disappointment strengthens her resolve. Every betrayal teaches her discernment. Every heartbreak deepens her compassion. What the enemy sends for evil, God flips into preparation. The very weapons meant to break her become the tools God uses to shape her into a warrior. This is why she cannot be stopped, because her destiny is not in the enemy's hands, it is in God's. The devil may press, but God preserves. The devil may attack, but God advances. So when the strongest women suffer, it is not evidence that they have been abandoned by God. It is evidence that they have been noticed by the enemy. The devil knows that once she steps fully into who she is, hell cannot contain the damage she will do to the kingdom of darkness. This is why the pressure is so heavy, why the fight is so long, why the nights are so hard. Her destiny is disruptive, her calling is dangerous, and her future is unstoppable. The suffering is not proof of weakness. It is proof of the enemy's fear. Every purpose God births begins with pain. From the very beginning of creation, labor was connected to life. A woman brings forth new life through travail. And in the same way, spiritual purpose is often born through seasons of suffering. Nothing significant comes without a struggle. When God is preparing to release something powerful through a woman, he first allows her to walk through trials that strip her, break her, and press her. That pressing may feel unbearable, but it is not meaningless. It is preparation. Her suffering is not designed to end her story, but to birth a new chapter that carries greater weight and influence than anything before. Look at Hannah. Her barrenness was not permanent. It was preparation. Year after year, she carried the pain of an empty womb, mocked by those who could not see the weight of her destiny. But her suffering drove her to the temple to pour out her soul before God. And from that travail came Samuel, one of the greatest prophets in Israel's history. Without the tears, without the prayers birthed in anguish, Samuel would never have been born. God used her pain as the soil for her purpose. In the same way, many women endure long seasons of waiting and heartbreak because what they carry is too great to be rushed. The pain is not wasted. It is the labor that prepares the promise. Consider Esther. Before she stood in the palace as queen, she had to endure the suffering of losing her parents and being raised in exile. Her suffering positioned her for her assignment. She would not have been in that palace had she not endured loss. And when the time came to risk her life before the king, she understood what suffering meant. She knew that destiny requires sacrifice. Her words, "If I perish, I perish," did not come from comfort, but from courage forged through hardship. The same God who allowed her pain used it to prepare her to stand in the gap for her people. Her suffering was the womb that birthed her courage. Then there was Mary, chosen to carry the Savior. She also carried shame, suspicion, and the weight of being misunderstood. Her yes to God came with suffering. She watched her son grow, only to see him mocked, beaten, and crucified. No mother should have to endure such pain, but her assignment required it. Without her suffering, there would be no witness to the resurrection. Her pain was real, but so was her purpose. Her suffering did not disqualify her. It confirmed the greatness of her calling. This is the pattern God uses again and again. Suffering is never random. It is the womb of destiny. It breaks pride. It strips away illusions. It forces dependence on God alone. And in that breaking, God creates room for something greater to be birthed. Many women wonder why they keep facing wave after wave of trials. But the truth is that God is bringing them into labor. Labor is messy. Labor is painful. Labor is exhausting. But labor always ends with new life. The pain is temporary, but the purpose it produces is eternal. So if the strongest women suffer deeply, it is because they are in the process of birthing something that will outlast them. What feels like breaking is actually birthing. The sleepless nights, the tears cried into pillows, the battles fought in silence. All of it is labor pains for a destiny bigger than they can imagine. They are carrying ministries, movements, healing breakthroughs, and generational change inside of them. The pain is not a sign of abandonment. It is a sign of delivery. Something is coming forth. And the greater the pain, the greater the purpose. Your suffering is bigger than your story. What you endure is not confined to your own life. It spills over into the lives of those connected to you. God allows his strongest women to walk through valleys, not just for their personal refinement, but for the generations that will follow. Every tear shed becomes a seed of encouragement for another woman, another daughter, another sister who will face her own valley. When you suffer with faith, you carve out a path for someone else to walk behind you. Your endurance becomes their courage. Your testimony becomes their lifeline. The impact of your suffering stretches far beyond the walls of your own life. Think about the women who have gone before us, mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, who endured unimaginable trials yet held on to God. Many of them did not see the fullness of their prayers answered in their own lifetime, but their faith became the foundation for those who came after them. Their sacrifice, their suffering, created opportunities for their children and grandchildren to walk in greater freedom. What they carried in pain, we now walk in as blessing. In the same way, this your suffering today may not only be for your breakthrough, it may be for the breakthrough of those who will carry your name long after you are gone. God's strongest women often discover that their lives are not their own. The battles they fight are not only for themselves, but for their families, communities, and even nations. A woman who overcomes addiction paves the way for her children to live free. A woman who breaks the silence on abuse gives courage for others to find their voice. A woman who clings to faith in the middle of loss becomes a living testimony to everyone watching that God can still be trusted when life makes no sense. Her suffering becomes a message that speaks louder than words ever could. And here's the truth. People are always watching. Children watch how their mothers respond under pressure. Friends watch how you endure seasons of disappointment. Strangers watch how you carry yourself when life knocks you down. Whether you realize it or not, your suffering is writing a sermon that others are reading. When you keep your faith in the middle of the fire, you become a living Bible for someone else who doesn't know where to turn. Your pain becomes the proof they need that God is still real, still present, still faithful. Your life preaches louder than your lips. The beauty of this truth is that your suffering does not just serve as an example, it becomes a legacy. Long after your season of trial has ended, the testimony remains. Your children will tell the story of how you endured. Your grandchildren will draw strength from the faith you displayed. Your community will be impacted by the stand you took. You may never know on this side of eternity just how many people were blessed because of the pain you carried with grace. But heaven knows. Heaven records every tear, every battle, every sacrifice. None of it is wasted. This is why God allows his strongest women to endure more than others, because their story is meant to echo. Their suffering is a torch that lights the way for others. Their pain is the soil where another's hope can grow. Their endurance becomes the blueprint for someone else's survival. And though they may feel forgotten in their darkest hour, the truth is that their lives are becoming a living testimony of God's sustaining power. Their suffering is not simply about them. It is God's way of raising up examples the world desperately needs to see.